Today we're updating the legendary investment tier list, a system that I created to help governors understand which commanders would not just be good right now, but will be a great place for a long time to put your legendary commander sculptures. This is one of the most watched and for sure copied series in Rise of Kingdoms. So let's talk about how we'd update the list. And look, I don't always get it right, but I'm going to pat myself on the back here. We got the addition of GG in the mix, and I predicted pretty well how things would shake up, and I predicted pretty well where Achilles would go. Pair with future ? And here we are. Now we've got to go rank the new commanders. We'll move a few commanders around based on the fact that, like, well, you know, look, skill damage is really going out of style unless you're an archer. So let's start with GG. I want to bring him up here, and he is really good, but you know what? Look, this whole system of like meta breaker and pair with future doesn't really work quite the same way. I'm going to call this new meta. And then I'll say, we'll call it pair with new meta. So if you're new to here, you may be like, dude, what is happening here? So look, QSH is at such a high power level that in my opinion, he broke what I had before as like the system of like, here's your, you know, high priority investments, commanders that'll last you for a really long time. Here's your low priority investments. You only do those after you've done the high priority. QSH was the literal only game in town, the actual like only commander worth an invest kind of, in terms of like longevity and value and potential. Okay. Because he's just that much better than everything else. I think Achilles is in this brand of new meta where I'd say, okay, like if you're maxing a commander now and you wanted a cav commander, like, yeah, it would be Achilles. Okay. And then there's the commanders that you pair with new meta. Like Arthur goes with Achilles. They're a lower priority than new meta. All right. So this is really your highest priority. This is your next priority. And then down and low priority is where we're going to have this stuff that's like, you kind of got to know what you're doing. And niche role is almost like a just know at this point. Like niche role is honestly like, I'll leave it niche role as the name of the category. Niche means like there's a very specific purpose. You need to understand what that purpose is if you're actually going to go max one of those commanders. Like as an example, we're going to put David in the niche role. Okay. You're not going to max him for field. You're not going to 5-5-1-1 him or whatever for field. That's like how you set up your account for failure. Everybody knows this. Like he's a garrison commander. You max him for garrison. Maybe you can get some decent reports in the field. Maybe because he does AoE. Maybe if you're running a lot of cav marches. Maybe. But like at the end of the day, you're not setting up your account for open field success by investing in garrison commanders. What are we talking about? Not ones that have so many skills committed to garrison only. So we put David over there. We've got GG up over here. And now I'm feeling pretty good about this, except here's my prediction for what's going to pair with new meta. I predict, and I could definitely be wrong, that BQ is going to be what pairs well with whatever new infantry come in the future. But I don't know. It could be Liu Che. But given that Liu Che is a good bit older than BQ, and I think BQ has a lot of potential. Why? BQ has a lot of potential because he is kind of broken with use of active skills. And he also is really hard hitting. He's a little bit more glass cannon, I think, than Liu Che is. Liu Che is pretty well-rounded in terms of damage dealt and damage mitigated. Now, granted, he does also do it's kind of like a combo attack on Liu Che. They might have, I can't remember if it actually is just outright a combo attack now, but the point I'm making is that between the two of them, I'd say probably BQ is more likely to be paired with new meta in the future. So if you had to pick one, that's my guess, but I am honestly just guessing. I am just guessing. As far as low priority goes and the rest of what's in here, I do think that where we've got Philip is fine. Zhuge Liang, I almost want to bump down to niche role. I really don't feel like it's a great idea to be putting sculptures into him at this point. Do I even just move him down now? I mean, it's just such a weird position. I think if you're going to run 2 Archer marches, you're going to want to have Zhuge Liang still. So, like, we'll leave him here, but, like, he's getting old. Same is true of the Siege Bros over here. Like, they're getting old. I don't know what's going on with, like, the Siege meta. Is it supposed to be normal damage or skill damage or where that's headed? But these guys seem to just continue to dish out value. So, if you're investing in a Siege March, there it is. So, big picture, Chisgule is saying best investment as of November 2025. And look at that. We managed to get this done in like well under 10 minutes because I think it's very straightforward. QSH is still your #1 pick in the game. Easily, hands down, without hesitation. That's your top priority. Now, just like in a tier list, this is designed for you to read from left to right, at least in these top categories. So QSH is to the left because he is the highest priority. Then you've got Achilles. Okay. And Achilles is there, pairs great with Arthur. And if you're going to run 2 cavalry marches and you're going to run 2 combo sets of armaments, I think that GG majorly comes into play. You run GG with Achilles and you put Arthur with somebody else. I'm going to use like Arthur with William. You could use Arthur with Philip. People really don't like the defense boost and the rage boost and all the things William does, but like, call me crazy, but man, he's just good. He is, bro, he's so good. But whatever. He's old meta. You wouldn't want to put a sculpture into him now, you know? So anyways, if you're doing cav marches, that's what you're going to do. If you're doing infantry marches, you're a newer player, you're getting to the end game, you're like, what do I do? What do I do? You know, BQ and Liu Chat are great. If you plan to run multiple infantry marches, then like you definitely want those 2 commanders and you can split them. Alternatively, you, of course, as you're building up, can run them together. They're incredibly powerful. And even, you know, pairing up with Philip in a whole bunch of different ways, people have found a ton of success there as well. So a lot you can do with your kind of infantry here in the midterm. The weirdness for infantry with regard to multiple marches is that skill damage for infantry seems to be going the way of the dodo. Ragnar Skippy is very, very good as a combo right now and still serves me very well relative to my archers as an example. But, you know, you can't start that investment now. You just can't. So I'm holding on to them for as long as I can, but I expect, you know, skill damage infantry will die off very soon. And, you know, could be as soon as when they release the new commanders. It's going to be very hard to say how well skill damage infantry hold up and how you might pair there. This is especially true because Hector gave absolutely no support whatsoever to skill damage infantry, which I found really jaw-dropping. But the other thing that I will add to this is that I still feel like Hector, although versatile, is a worse investment than Philip. And the reason you would do Hector is if you wanted a ability to, you know, potentially back up Garrison with a march that could also kind of field. He's just too much of nothing in particular to be noteworthy for open field. And instead of versatile, I find him personally to just be falling kind of flat. That was true in all the testing that we did. And even in Garrison testing that we ran, we found that you're better off just mono trooping with like Toku than using Hector. And a lot of people will show you their Hector reports and go, look how good it is. But you probably could have done better with Toku. And there's a whole argument about mixed troops that we do need to open up that can of worms. We can explore that in a different video because that's not really what this is about. This is about open field value. And the point I'm trying to make is that even though Hector's a newer commander, I'm not convinced that he brings a ton of open field value. He's missing the AoE damage to really deliver that. And although technically you can use him with a bunch of different troop types, I certainly can't recommend moving in on a set of leadership gear. So you're not going to want to run him as the primary. He's going to have to always be the secondary. I'm skipping him. That's my intention. And if I have to go back and get him for some reason, I will. And I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But in the meantime, these are my recommendations. Now, the thing that's most noteworthy about this is that we're still in this incredibly unusual post-QSH world where there aren't as many commanders up here as I would like. Normally, I would like to have 3 commanders for each troop type, and I don't think there's 3 commanders of each troop type that's at that level of power that I would recommend them. That's how big, in my opinion, the power jump was when we got QSH into the game. And so I mention this because normally, I think that most people are interested in like 2 pairs for each troop type. And like I have 3 cavalry up here. I have only 2 infantry. I have 2 archers, but like QSH is so good, just pair them with anyone. And if you're in the early game and you're kind of wondering like, so Chisgule, what are the implications for me? The biggest implication is that still Esong is an absolute legend. You should totally work on him early and then use him into the late game with QSH and just call it a day. Very, very strong setup. I think that the Chisgule is personally better for open field, but the second you're going to run 2 marches anyways, you're going to use Esong with QSH because that's such a good synergy. And, you really only want 1 archer march, in my opinion, in this meta anyways. So, yeah, getting to the end game, the QSH and the Chisgule is amazing. I would say Minamoto is still good to max for Barb Forts and early game gameplay, but now that skill damage is really gone, is not going to have a pairing. So to some extent, this really kind of diminishes in its value. And early game commanders that we could talk about, like, CJ and Alexander the Great and some of these other guys that, like, I don't know, I guess I've got, like actually both of them over here in niche role. I'll scroll down so you can see them a little better. These are early game commanders that, like, I don't know, man. Like Alex really isn't quite doing the thing. CJ, I mean, if you're a big spender, like, this is why it's a niche role. If you're a big spender, like, you could do it. But the second you get to KVK 3, right, like, that's just not meta anymore. So if you're limited on sculptures, you have to pick the things that'll last a long time. The stuff up and to the left in this chart, I think, is what lasts for a while. New meta, pair with new meta, and low prio. That's where it's at. You enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, subscribe. If you got any thoughts, leave them down below in the comments. People always do have thoughts on my tier list, but I was actually bang on, and a lot of people left comments like, wow, your tier list was like really quite spot on this time. And I was like, hey, thank you for that. Thank you for noticing. If you do want to see what those predictions were, you can check the card in the end screen. You can also subscribe. Alternatively, if you want to see the more detailed breakdown on GG, I have a video for that. I'll have that one over here and the side in just a second.